What's going on, everyone, and welcome into Plizone's podcast. In this episode, I will be talking about the college football playoffs with my good friends Cameron and Carton from the Saturdays in the SEC podcast. Be sure to go check them out. The link is in the description. They have a great channel, and they know more about the SEC than anyone I've ever met. So stay tuned for this episode. Be sure to look at our other ones as well. And thanks again for watching. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Texas A&M has the disappointment against Texas. They're 11-1. Retrospectively, who have they really played and beaten, right? Notre Dame is probably the one team that you can say that's a great win. But, Florida at home, South Carolina, up 30-3. I mean, obviously show great poise and come back and win that game. But LSU obviously fires Brian Kelly the game after. Credit to A&M for that. But in terms of difficult top-tier opponents, I think A&M probably, of all the teams that we talk about, in the college football playoff, outside of the group of five, of course, who was A&M, quote-unquote, really beaten? Or, take that for what you will. Cameron, let me start with you. Do you kind of agree with the sentiment, or are you of the opinion that this A&M team is 100% a national title contender?
I guess I'm a little bit in the middle, honestly. Like I said, the way their SEC schedule fell to, I mean, not any fault of their own, just kind of the way it felt, but pretty much every team they played outside of Texas was in the bottom half of the SEC this year. Some teams that people thought were going to be better just didn't pan out. South Carolina, even though they had to come back from down 30 in that game, 33 and all that. I do think this Miami team, too, from – the run defense, I think, will be one of the toughest run defenses Texas A&M's played all year.
Yep.
I think so. And obviously A&M's been a great team running the ball. So who wins that matchup? I think Marcel Reed's legs. He hasn't been, used his legs a ton this year. Really hasn't really relied on that a lot. But I think he might have to a little bit more in this game. So again, kind of what I said with Ole Miss, I just think this A&M team is on the tougher side of the bracket. I just think that side is really loaded. So I do think they find a way to get a win in this game, being in College Station. I'm sure that atmosphere is going to be unbelievable. I think it's going to be a grinded out type of game, I believe, because like I said, I think both teams, too, can really get after the quarterback. So I think it's going to come down into the hands of Marcel Reed and Carson Beck, respectively. But I like the weapons Marcel Reed has around him. I think this time off will do him some good. Obviously had a super rough outing against Texas. I do think they end up finding a way in a close game here in College Station. I think they move on. Obviously going to have a very tough matchup against Ohio State in the second round. But one thing I do want to watch, too, with these playoffs, and I know the seeding this year has been changed, and it's not the conference champions getting the top 4 seeds this year. Yep. It's just the top 4 teams. Last year, every team with a bye lost. So I kind of want to see, does that become a trend? Because, obviously 1 year is not a big enough sample size to say, but I do want to see, is there something to that those top 4 having such a long layoff and these teams getting a pretty long layoff but having a game in between? Does that have them a lot sharper? I think that's something to watch. We saw that last year kind of came into play. Is that something that continues this year? That's something, a little caveat too, that I'm really curious to watch with those 4 quarterfinal teams, or those 4 top seeds.
Definitely. Garden, what do you think?
I agree with you. I don't think they've been tested tremendously. South Carolina was probably their biggest test up until Texas. Obviously, that's a huge test that they ended up coming back and answering and passing. But Miami but it feels like it's a fair comparison to like Missouri, who they handled pretty well. They had a common opponent with Notre Dame. Obviously, they ended up beating them by a point, but they still beat them. I think LSU's fairly comparable defensively to Miami. I think Miami's got a little bit better secondary than LSU does. But at the same point, you could say, who has Miami played? I think Texas A&M is better than Miami. I think they've played some teams that are very comparable to Miami. Maybe not talent-wise, but you're talking about product-wise. I think Texas A&M gets past Miami, and then they're going to face Ohio State. And then you could say the same thing about Ohio State. Who the hell has Ohio State played? Because you played Texas week 1, who is a completely different Texas team than they are now. Still counts, still a win. But then you go and you don't score a single point in the second half of your conference championship game against Indiana, which Indiana, obviously number 1 team. They're a very good football team. But I think that they have a chance to at least get to the semis because the teams that they play, you can say the same thing about them. Who have they played? What have they done against the teams of the higher calibers that they've played? I mean, SMU got them, or got Miami. Louisville got Miami. I think that Texas A&M is better than both of those teams. And also, I feel like Miami doesn't fold under the spotlight, but I feel like they don't ever perform to the caliber that they're expected to when the lights are the brightest.
Yep.
So I think Texas A&M finds a way to win this weekend against Miami. I think they can get it done against Ohio State. I really do, because I think the argument's the same there. But then I don't think that they could get past that.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat, and kind of for the reasons that y'all are talking about here. I think if A&M had to play Oklahoma or even Alabama, we'd be having a different conversation.
Agreed.
But given the circumstances behind Miami, right? We talk about who Miami has played. Where has Miami gone on the road, right? Florida State. At the time, it looked pretty okay because Florida State was still ranked 18th in the country. We know that road win really didn't mean that much. SMU, Virginia Tech, and Pitt, right? They hadn't been to Kyle Allen. I need to see what it looks like, to be honest. I was really lauding this Miami run game to start the season, and I thought that Mark Fletcher Jr. at Miami was going to kind of run away with the starting running back job, and he just hasn't popped off the way that I thought that he would, especially given Mario Cristobal's background, going all the way back to his days at Alabama being the offensive line coach. And he's a former offensive lineman himself. This is a guy who wants to win in the trenches at the line of scrimmage over and over and over again. But when it comes to playing some of these teams like SMU or Louisville, they weren't able to do it at an elite level enough to win a game versus going back now, looking at it retrospectively, unranked ACC teams, let alone, a ranked road game against an SEC team. I've seen some this is deep ball knowledge, but some, I can't remember his first name off the top of my head, but that A&M right guard. Oh, I'm blanking. Adams. Oh, I can't believe I'm doing this to myself. I'm not even showing my own ball knowledge. But anyways, Texas A&M's offensive line, in my opinion, is the best offensive line in the country. There's no other team that has been able to establish the dominance that they've had throughout this season, given the fact that Le'Veon Moss has missed a fat chunk of the year with his injury, right? So I actually saw them in person. I'm wearing some Florida gear. I was at the Florida versus A&M game, and they didn't play terribly great against Florida until we got to the fourth quarter. But that's kind of who A&M is and who they've been throughout the season. They are the heavyweight boxer that leans on you over and over again, quarter by quarter, until you get to that fourth, and then they push off and they hit you with the left hook, and it's over. I think A&M has a puncher's chance, like any heavyweight boxer, to win any of these games. Kind of similar to our Ole Miss talk. Be sure to go check that out, by the way. I just don't see it being that possible that they do it versus Miami, they do it versus Ohio State, then they got to probably play Georgia, and then they have to do it yet again with anybody from the top side of the bracket. When I look at teams making these generational runs or like trying to establish dynasties, you don't see teams making this dramatic leap. Take Patrick Mahomes, for example, with Kansas City, right? He didn't win a Super Bowl the first year he started. He lost to Tom Brady in the AFC Championship, right? And then he goes and wins a Super Bowl. A&M is in that same spot. I love the team. Craver, Marcel Reed, probably going to be back next year. A lot of those defensive players probably going to be back next year. Mike Elko signs the extension. A&M next season is going to be one of my national title favorites because they have a lot of continuity and consistency and talent. But this year, it looks unlikely. Those are my thoughts about A&M. Let's go ahead and segue in. Be sure to tune into this next episode. We're going to be talking about overall college football playoff predictions.